Alright guys, welcome back to another week of day trading, and I'm not gonna lie, this week was pretty rough. It's honestly been a while since it's felt this tough, especially with the model just not playing out the way I wanted. There were a few days where I definitely broke my own rules, which obviously didn't help, but yeah, we keep moving forward. I'm sure it won't stay like this forever, right? Alright, so coming into the charts today, I do feel pretty bullish, but I didn't want to just take a buy blindly. There is some short potential because of this 4-hour imbalance right here, but honestly, as long as the hourly inverse fair value gap keeps holding, I'm really only interested in the buys. And inside this 4-hour order block, we also got a couple of hourly imbalances sitting above price. So for me, that just gives price somewhere to go. Lower time frames are also holding bullish structure too, so everything's just kind of lining up the way I want. Now, volume is a little light right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got another dip, but as long as we're not breaking structure going for shorts, then I'm totally fine waiting for a long. And we did end up getting that push lower. Price came right into the golden zone of the 5-minute range. We also got a nice little wick sweep into the lows, which basically is what I wanted to see. And after that, we got a 1-minute shift and volume started stepping in too. And yeah, that was pretty much enough for me, so that's where I took the long. Price responded almost immediately and we got a really clean push higher. The trade was in profit pretty much straight away. We tagged my take profit really quickly too, so yeah, it's just a nice little green trade to start off the week. Honestly, it was a really clean textbook setup. I'm especially happy with the patience here, just letting price come to me and then waiting for it to shift. Looking back at last week, I realized I was kind of forcing bigger targets than I needed to, so this week I'm just focusing on taking what the market gives me. You know, nothing too crazy, just a calm, well executed trade. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Tuesday. Alright, so coming into today, we are trending lower overall, so I was leaning to the sell side, and we are also respecting this 4-hour order block here, which fit that bearish bias nicely. And inside that 4-hour, there's also some hourly imbalances I wanted to see get tapped, and that lines up really well with the higher time frame premium range. So if we got that tap for me, that would be a really clean area to for some shorts. And dropping down lower, there are definitely some confluences showing up for both sides. At the time, price did look pretty bearish. We had a wick sweep into the highs, and there's also a 50-minute fair value gap sitting there as well. And the only thing that's kind of holding me back is that we still hadn't hit the premium yet. And honestly, without that premium tap, the setup just wasn't really probable for me. So in my head, if price doesn't reach this level, I'm probably just gonna avoid trading for today. And I did end up having to wait a long time for this one. Price just kept pushing higher and higher, which wasn't ideal for what I wanted. And we did end up getting a wick sweep of a high though, so there is still some sort of potential there. And price also respected the 50-minute order block in the end, which added a bit more confluence. But for confirmation, I really wanted to see a 5-minute like inverse get formed, maybe an IFG or something. After a couple of really close breaks, we finally got a 1-minute shift with strong volume, and off that 1-minute shift, I decided to take the short. And pretty quickly, this trade started stalling out. Price was really struggling to break lower, and we kept pushing higher instead. We also never ended up forming that 5-minute inverse, and at that point, I kind of knew we were cooked. And sure enough, price ended up pushing higher, and we ended up getting tapped out of this trade. Honestly, just a rough day looking back at it. The setup really just wasn't there. The 1-minute shift wasn't strong enough on its own, and I was a bit too hasty with the entry. And even if price wanted to form lower, I still could have waited for a 5-minute shift, which was the original plan anyway. So yeah, this loss is fully on me. It was definitely avoidable, and that's just something I'll be focusing on improving going forward. Alright, so coming to today, I do feel pretty bullish overall. We had just broken through NWOG, which already had me leaning more to the buy side, and price was also respecting this 4-hour and 1-hour order block here. On top of that, we got a really clean higher time frame target sitting above, and the swing high here could act nicely as a magnet. So overall, it is just a really good alignment that I like to see. And dropping down to the lower time frames, everything was just backing up the idea as well. Price was retesting into this 15-minute and 5-minute order block, and that also lined up really nicely with the 5-minute discount zone. And since we already had a solid retest into that area, all I really needed at this point was a 1-minute shift to get me into this trade, and the target wasn't too far either, so in my head this would be a really nice clean move. As price continued to develop, on the 1-minute things were chopping around a bit, but we did end up forming a clean wick lower. Price then broke through the 1-minute fair value gap, and that's what gave me the green light to enter. Now initially the trade did run pretty slow. We even got a bit of a further retest low, which is fair enough. Overall, I still had pretty high confidence in the setup, and we did eventually get a nice bounce higher that put the trade into profit. That move didn't last very long though, as price did end up getting pushed back down, and market open pretty much was the final nail in the coffin for this one. Honestly, a pretty brutal outcome for today. I was actually quite happy with this setup. I think that it was cleaner than the one I took yesterday. One thing I've been thinking about is that maybe waiting for a retest of the imbalance in the future. I've noticed that a lot of times after the initial 1 minute break, price will come back and retest it a bit before it really wants to run. So that's definitely something I think I'm going to be working on and improving. But yeah, not every setup is going to be a winner. That's just part of trading, and you've just got to be okay with that. So yeah. Alright guys, so coming into the session, I was feeling pretty bearish overall. We had been chopping around inside NWOG for most of the day, and then we started developing some bearish structure with this wick sweep here. On top of that, price was also respecting this 1 hour fair value gap really cleanly, so for me it made sense that we could continue pushing lower towards these swing lows perhaps. And dropping down to the lower time frames, we are also respecting some bearish confluences. We had a 15-minute inverse fair value gap and a 5-minute order block sitting right here, which is a pretty solid combination. And that said, I am still expecting a bit of a retracement. Price could easily come back up, fill some orders, and then look to continue lower. And we also had a wick sweep forming at the time, which played into that idea as well. And as price developed, we did end up getting that retrace that I was looking for. We ended up forming a fresh wick sweep and a new 1 minute fair value gap. And once price displaced through that 1 minute fair value gap, that's when I decided to take the short. And overall, the setup itself was really clean. We had the market structure lining up, we had good volume coming in, and both the higher and lower time frame confluences were backing up the trade. Price initially gave us a nice push lower. Once we had that continuation, I topped up the position to my normal risk, but not long after that though, price started reversing and we pushed higher pretty aggressively, and the trade ended up getting stopped out pretty quickly. So even with this loss, I am still pretty happy with the setup today. It is a little bit unfortunate that it didn't play out, but there are definitely a few things that I can improve on. One thing I've been thinking about is waiting for a proper market structure shift lower after that wick sweep and inverse, because I entered purely off of the inverse, and once price pushed back up, there wasn't really much I could do to manage it. So waiting for the extra confirmation would probably make the setup higher probability. But yeah, those are some of the things I picked up from this trade. I'm gonna keep going back and backtesting my model so I can see where I can continue to level up. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this week's trading. As you can see, this was quite a bit of a struggle overall. The model just wasn't running as clean as I'd like, and it definitely showed. I think I do need to take a step back this weekend and reflect a bit, especially since it's been a while since I've broken a rule like this. So I'll be doing some more journaling, going back through my trades and getting some extra backtesting in. I've also got a lot coming up outside of trading, so it's just one of those periods where I just gotta stay extra intentional. But yeah, I'm still focused on improving and showing up the right way. The main takeaway for me this week is just sticking to the model and staying loyal to it regardless of what kind of period I'm going through, and yeah, keeping that consistency up even when things are feeling tough. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this week. If you guys are interested, feel free to check out the Discord. It's just a chill place for everybody to talk and grow as traders. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.